So first of all, the webinar duration is for 45 minutes, and out of which we'll be starting first 15 minutes covering about the common challenges which we are facing during accounts payable automation, followed by a 25 minutes demo, and the last 15 minutes is where we are kept for the Q&A session. We will be recording this webinar so that if you need for future references, you can also view the webinar recording. Third thing is there are a couple of polls which we are going to conduct in order to keep the session a bit interactive. And during the session, if you have any questions, so in the Zoom webinar panel, there is a Q&A box. You can use the Q&A box, or you can also use the chat function for the Zoom webinar software. Apart from that, as this webinar is for 45 minutes, even if there's something which we missed out, I would request you to, please reach out to us directly via email, and you can email us at contact@aavenir.com. And lastly, on social media, we are doing a lot of updating. We are doing a lot of new templates. We are giving a lot of giveaways. So I would request you, please do follow us on our social media accounts, wherein you will get all the regular updates about our different products and the webinars. So with that, I would like to introduce today's presenter, starting with Russell, who's the account executive at Aavenir, followed by Rohit, who's the director of product management, who will be giving us the demo. And you can also reach Rohit and Russell directly to the email ID which is mentioned over the screen. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Russell to take over. Russell, over to you.
Thank you, Maddie, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for the time today and for joining. So I think a good place for us to start would be just with a brief overview of Aavenir, who we are and what we do. So we develop source-to-pay solutions that are built on the ServiceNow platform. So it's kind of identified here as a series of processes along really the purchasing spectrum. And we've got 3 flagship products available. That being RFX management, contract lifecycle management, and accounts payable automation. So today's webinar, of course, going to be focused on the latter, accounts payable automation on ServiceNow. And a bit about us. So we are developing these source-to-pay solutions really with the core of our innovation strategy is to leverage best-of-breed technology components, things like AI, machine learning, natural language processing to really deliver value. You're going to see a lot of that in today's presentation as it relates to invoice data extraction, data entry, et cetera, automating a lot of that with some advanced artificial intelligence functionality. Another key note is that all of our applications are 100% native to ServiceNow. That's a very important consideration for a lot of our clients because they're already bought into the ServiceNow platform, and this serves, frankly, as a natural extension to both the user interface, user experience, as well as the core data model. So one and the same from the perspective of the end user. So let's talk for a bit about who's attending today's presentation. So kind of a pretty well-distributed group of attendees across different parts of the enterprise. It looks like IT. Give yourselves a round of applause for such a strong showing. Also got folks from finance, consulting, sales, procurement, and other parts of the organization as well. So we're very pleased to see that this is driving interest across various business units within all of the different groups who are joining us today. And I also want to talk just a bit about some of the biggest challenges and interests. So when everybody filled out the form to get your registration, we asked, what is your biggest challenge today? What are some of your comments? And here's the feedback from the groups. So as you can see, lots of people were mentioning manual processes as the primary challenge that they're experiencing with respect to invoice and accounts payable. Time and efficiency, probably almost combine those together. Quite a few folks are here to learn about new functionality on the ServiceNow platform as well. So as you can see, we've got again, a pretty nice distribution of comments and feedback. A couple of people simply left an asterisk in the comment section. So just want to let you all know if that's you, your voice is being heard. So thank you for that. Excellent feedback. And before we jump into material, let's go ahead and start off with a poll question. Like Maddie said, we want to keep this interactive. So for the first poll, have you ever used a ServiceNow app store for any application? Aavenir is actually downloaded and originally retrieved from the ServiceNow app store. So is that something that we've got any familiarity with? We'll take just a moment to gather feedback. And the answer looks like 61% have used ServiceNow App Store applications. So that's great. That means about 2/3 of the folks on the webinar today have got some experience with that mechanism. For the rest of you, don't worry. It's quite simple in concept, and we'll be happy to address and explain further if needed. So let us move forward then and talk just a bit about the actual platform itself. So Aavenir Accounts Payable Automation, really designed to help automate a large chunk of the incoming invoice receipt and processing processes that go into your accounts payable strategy. So this is a visual representation of the various steps in the process, which we're going to help you automate and execute, starting with the collection of an invoice or a bill, if you will, coming into what's usually a centralized inbox, then doing data extraction, verification, approvals, workflows, etc. Another good way to think about this is that the Aavenir technology helps facilitate and automate the front end of this process, automatically capturing the invoice directly out of your inbox, automatically kicking off an OCR scan, extracting key data, using artificial intelligence to validate that data, to give a confidence level against the data. And then the ServiceNow platform and our native delivery on the ServiceNow platform helps to drive efficiency on the back end. So automating the approval capture, for instance, to different lines of business. Often we hear, if an invoice is over a certain dollar amount, needs to go to an extra step of approval, or invoices coming from different regions might have different department heads, different regional heads that need to get their approval on that. So all of that can be defined and automated within the system, eliminating the time-intensive and manual email processes that we often see today. And additionally, with additional data around purchase orders and receipts, we can execute two-way and three-way matches, essentially taking this invoice from the inbox all the way to the back-end system ready for remittance. We're going to be delivering a lot of value across that process chain, which is very manual and cumbersome in many cases today. So with all of that said, let's jump into our second poll question. This is around your priorities. What are your top priorities for invoice processing in 2020, or maybe in 2021 as well? There's only a couple months left here in the year, believe it or not. Give everybody a couple of minutes. All right, this was a multi-select option. Looks like number one is to automate the invoice receipt capabilities. About 2/3 of you selected that option, but both of the other options were 45 and 30%. So a lot of prioritization around generating workflows, improving spend analytics, but primarily automating invoice receipt capabilities, which as I'm sure a lot of you know, is quite a challenge. Many large organizations are receiving thousands of invoices on a monthly basis, so that front end process of capturing can be quite cumbersome. So moving forward, we're going to talk about kind of a case study with an organization, a fictional organization called The Firm. So The Firm is a fictional company that supplies IT hardware and managed services. They're a multinational organization, so they've grown organically, but have also implemented an aggressive merger strategy to capitalize on more of the market share across the world. And due to the the natural ebbs and flows of growth, as well as the global acquisition strategy, what they started to experience was each region beginning to operate somewhat autonomously. This left them with silos of data and process and technology. And ultimately, as they grew, they started to face some challenges across the business, including an accounts payable. So they had multiple accounts payable processes that were established across the globe, very decentralized. So they didn't have any source of information where they can go to for reporting. They didn't have any clear approval chain or approval capture process. Everything was not only happening in a kind of a bespoke nature regionally, but even within each region, very unclear definition, a lot of email, a lot of manual work being done to execute the processes. And additionally, they had no ability to prioritize invoices for expedited processing, which can lead to some challenges as well. So the realization came at some point while business was doing great and they were growing, they realized, we're hurting ourselves somewhere. We're hemorrhaging money, not sure exactly how much or how to stop, but we need help. As the business continues to grow, the suppliers continue to grow. Eventually, they've got thousands of suppliers. They're receiving tens of thousands of invoices on an annual basis, and something had to change to get better control of this process, and just as importantly, to get better visibility about the global operations and efficiencies and bottlenecks. So, how can we help? Well, here's the happy ending. With Aavenir, we can help identify these bottlenecks within the invoice management process. Not only identify them, but quantify the actual cost of inefficiency, quantify the true cost of these operations as they exist today, and then work with you to develop a business case to support a transformation of accounts payable operations. This can start in a particular region, be expanded globally. In fact, that's probably the best practice. Start small, establish a win, get something implemented that demonstrates real success and real improvement, and then take that internal case study, if you will, and use it to start to unify the global operations. Deploying Aavenir solutions can automate up to 80% of the manual invoice-related tasks. What we always hear is, get an invoice, we have to pull all of the data out, put it into a spreadsheet, put it into other systems. We call that the swivel chair approach, which you can see demonstrated quite nicely by our 5-armed comrade on the right. And really just, again, uniting all of these processes onto a single platform with a single source of truth for global visibility, global reporting and data, can eliminate almost all of the late penalties for late payments year over year. Give you an opportunity to capitalize on prioritization mechanisms so you can get your early payment discounts, things like that. So what was once a big expense of both time and inefficient processes can really become a value add and cost cutting mechanism when we're talking about accounts payable operation and specifically about invoice processing. So I've kind of set the table with a bit of a case study. Let's get into one more poll before we hop into the actual presentation. How do you pay suppliers after your invoice approvals? So we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to give us some feedback, and then we'll be sharing that and jumping into the demo. The results are in. Not a big surprise. 90% are using either ERP or a separate financial system to actually deliver payments after invoices have been approved. A handful of folks out there are doing some manual reporting and doing that directly with the bank. This is an important consideration because Aavenir being built native on the ServiceNow platform, there are a lot of integration options with external systems, and I think the the big vision and big goal is to have a seamless automated platform. And that is absolutely a vision that we can help fulfill when it comes to processing, extracting, managing approvals of invoices, and then seamlessly passing that into back-end systems for payment and ledger posts and whatnot there. So with all of that said, that will be the end of the slide presentation, 15 minutes right on time. So I'm going to stop my share and pass over to Rohit for the presentation. And as we're transitioning, I will invite everybody, if you have questions or feedback, don't hesitate to use that comment box. Leave us some feedback, give us some questions. We'll address those at the end. So Rohit, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you for, walking us through the challenges and the different benefits. So those insights or those challenges also resonate across different organizations. So earlier I used to work with an organization that looked at AP automation for robust workflows or trying to integrate with the ERP. Another UK media organization looked at AP automation for accepting the invoices from the freelancers and then sending the payment. So each AP automation has a different use case across different organizations. So considering that, we'll touch primarily on two use cases. The first is the purchase order based invoice, and second is going to be a service invoice. Now, earlier Russell has talked about the 4 stages in invoice processing, where the first stage is about sending, sending the email. So with that, what you're looking at right now is the supplier email inbox. This is the stage where the supplier emails the invoice to a common finance email ID. It could be finance@aavenir.com or it could be finance@anyorganization.com. So now the supplier has attached the invoice that, ready to send it across, put in the, have put in the subject ID. Once they send it, they are going to receive a confirmation that this particular invoice has been created. Now, they are going to receive a particular reference number. This is a system generated acknowledgement email that contains this particular reference number, and it can be used for any future correspondence with the finance team, and a lot of back and forth happens about invoices. So this can be done here. Now, so the supplier part is completely over. So they have received the acknowledgement email. With this, now the AI processing will start. So this, once the supplier has sent in the acknowledgement email, the AI will start analyzing. So the AI will start recognizing and applying different business validations rule, validations like duplicate invoices, or you want to put in the vendor validation. So all those validations rule will start applying, and AI has also started processing or recognizing the patterns based on the header level or item level data. So you have a deep learning algorithm or conditional random patterns. So all those algorithms are applied, and it starts recognizing a 10-digit number can be a vendor, or a 12-digit number can be a purchase order number. So that's based on the labeling. And when the AI is not confident about a particular data, an error message will be thrown. And this is what we call as accuracy level or confidence level. And this really helps, the confidence level really helps in invoice coding or in the invoice validation phase. Now, once the invoice has been processed, it is sent to ServiceNow, where a workflow will be triggered. And the workflow can be assigned based on the approval matrix, that can be on the business unit or on the dollar value. In the meanwhile, when the invoice has reached ServiceNow, an email notification is also triggered to the particular AP staff that look, just start processing for this particular invoice. This invoice is assigned to you. So all of these are standard ServiceNow features that have been built into the invoice product. With this, let me go directly to the ServiceNow screen. So what you are seeing on the screen is standard. This is the UI of our invoice flow, and this is the invoice dashboard. So I have logged in as a power user, and I have a complete overview of all the invoices that are there within the organizations, and also different spend analytics tool uh, based on the invoice. Now, the first one is where invoices have been, segregated based on the different vendors. So normally what happens, you want to put in a supplier-based rationalization. You want to see where the spends are going in, where are the invoices, who is, where am I spending the most? So those things you can start, the journey on the spend analytics part. You can also start prioritizing the invoices based on the status. That means you want to prioritize the invoices that are just created and you want to assign it to someone. So all those things can be taken care of. Uh, this particular report is on payment terms. It means as an organization, you would like to standardize the payment terms across different, different invoices or different suppliers. So you can achieve that and have a common payment cycle for all the invoices. Now, also, those are the two most important reports for any AP staff. Those two reports are basically are the list of the invoices that were just generated or just created and assigned, and you want to prioritize those invoices. So one is a PO, purchase order based invoices, and second is the non-PO invoices. In our experience, non-PO invoices take maximum time to get processed or get approved. So with that, let me start the processing of a purchase order based invoice. So I've clicked on the purchase order based invoice where the AI has processed the particular invoice. So what you are seeing on the right hand side is basically the invoice that was sent by the supplier. And this was generated in a PDF format, and that has been attached here. Whatever you're seeing on the left-hand side has been extracted from the AI. So the AI has realized that this could be the invoice number, and it is populated in the particular field. And as you go down, you can see all the related data from invoice has been put in the respective fields. I'm going to talk more on the specific validations and the different fields that have been extracted. So what you can see here, there is a particular tick mark here, a green tick. It means the vendor number that has been extracted from the invoice, that has been stored. It has been validated or verified from the supplier master. Now, most organizations receive fake invoices from fake suppliers. So those kind of validations will reduce the duplication of invoice, or the fraudulent invoices or invoice frauds can be reduced a lot with such kind of validations. Now, this is the finance related data, the payment terms, and all the invoice total. If there was a discount in um, in the invoice, all those fields would be populated. Uh, Talking further, the invoice line items will also be extracted. So as I was talking earlier about the algorithm, so the algorithm takes care of what can be a header data and what can be a line item data. Going further, since this is a PO based invoice, there will be a two-way, three-way matching. So the validation will be auto generated or auto done while I'm sending it for the next stage. And this is a particular workflow. So the approver name has been already added here. We have defined the workflow, and it can be configured based on the approval metrics you follow in the organization. With this, I'll be just jumping in and sending it for processing. To repeat it, that we are on ServiceNow, so the workflow configuration pretty easier to do. And the current status of the invoice is in created. So once I send it for processing, it'll get over to the in approval. With this, I'm going to send it for approval. And then the validation of two-way, three-way matching, comparing the PO record and the goods received, that will be populated here. So we got a message that the invoice has been successfully processed. And you also have a green tick that, okay, this validation has been done with the backend or with the master. You have basically, all the related data of the invoice. Now, in this particular case, I have added Peter as the approver. So Peter will be receiving an email notification, and also a task will be created. So the workflow has now been triggered to Peter. So I'm going to jump in directly to the mailbox of Peter and just going to refresh it. And then a particular, and the email notification would be coming over. Also, as I said earlier, that the task will be created for them. So you can see that a task has been created for Peter, and this is all standard service now. So you get, this is also talking of how specifically we have integrated the invoice flow with standard service now functionality. So Peter has received this task. He's just going to, say, okay, I just approve it. And all those comments will be added to the invoice, and accordingly also the status will be updated for the invoice. So I'm just going to go back to the earlier screen. So what we also call it as is live view. So what you see on the left is pretty configurable in terms of fields, because each invoice for each organization will have different fields and different invoice format. So that can be configured here. So as I refresh it here, the status of the invoice is going to be updated. So now the status has been moved to approved. Now, after this, since the invoice has been properly approved, a particular field of general ledger has been added or activated. Normally in organizations, we see that after the invoice is processed, we send it to the finance team, or probably send it across to the bank. So that flexibility is available in the product. So I'm just going to add the general ledger number. And again, if it is integrated with your financial system, all those fields can be easily auto-populated. With this, I'm just going to save it and again request for payment. And that is the final stage of the invoice processing. So once I send it for payment, it's going to ask me whether you are okay to save the changes and move it forward. So now, as you can see on the screen, that the inbuilt email integration, it also assigns the workflow to the finance person. So the finance person is able tutor. So the workflow will be assigned to them, and email also will be sent over. So what we are attaching right now is a payment request form. This payment request form is auto-generated based on the invoice data, and also the financial data that has been stored, and like the general ledger or probably the internal order. So all those things will be added. So I'm going to choose an email template for payment request form. Since there are multiple email templates, you can configure it as and when as per your need. With this, I'm just going to, the standard email text has been populated. I'm just going to send it out for processing. With this, the finance can take it forward. And also in this stage, you can integrate with your Sun accounts or your finance accounts, and they can take it further and send it out to the business. So this particular invoice is completely processed, and then it can be taken further. The next use case I'm going to touch upon is on the AI capabilities of scanning and recognizing the patterns. So as report, you have a master menu where you can see all the different functionalities, like you want to access the vendor details or you want to access the invoices. So all those things are possible. Considering that, I'm going to choose a particular invoice that was sent earlier, and some manual scribbling has been done on it. So I have previously worked at a factory, and what happened that each invoice had multiple touch points. In some cases, someone wanted to put some tick mark around it, or put some scribbling, or add some stamping around it. So what the AI needs to do is identify the garbage value from the actual value, like customer PO number. So the system has to start recognizing that, and that is done with the algorithm and also with the labeling thing. Now, we talked earlier on the confidence level. So what we're seeing here is that AI has started assigning confidence level to each field based on the data quality received. So the AI is not sure whether this is the correct invoice number achieved. So it has put in an error message that needs attention. So this is where a human intervention will be needed, that look, validate if the data has been properly, extracted, or the AI is, so those things are there so that the user can see which field I need to focus on or I zero in upon. Uh, Again, you can, in those kind of invoices, there are some errors. So you can again return it back to the vendor. It means that if you're not confident that this particular data is properly right or is in line with your organization, probably it can be the wrong invoice total or wrong tax amount. So you can return it back to the vendor. You can just put a tick mark, and a new workflow will be triggered. So that means it'll be sending it back to the vendor, and again a notification will be sent that this vendor has sent it an invalidated invoice. So you can start tracking those things. Now, since this is not a PO based invoice, there is no master data around it. So when I try to send it, I might get an error. Yeah. So it talks about that there has been no purchase order found. So either you can cancel it at the purchase order number, or you can send it back for approval to the approver. Now again, we have built in the approver around Peter, so an email notifications, and again the same process will be repeated. Uh, the third use case that I wanted to touch upon was a non-PO invoice. Now, in case of invoices, we normally receive discounts and different chargebacks, and those are done at identical line item. For example, if you get an invoice that has that has been bought as an organization level, so you want to put in different internal order or GL account or the cost center. So all those functionality also can be done here. So I'm going to touch upon a non-PO invoice where there is some discounting, and also you would like to add, the purchase into different internal orders or cost centers. So in this particular case, the vendor name has not been validated, hence you're getting this error. So again, AI also has put in the validation, and also it needs a lot of training around it. So the more you train the AI, the more invoice it gets processed with, the confidence level also gets pretty higher. So you don't see any error around invoice number or PO number, because since this is a non-PO invoice. In this particular case, you can see that a discount amount has been added here. So those invoices are normally a priority because you want to get back the cash. You don't want to pay the full amount. So you can only, you can set in a warning that this is an early discount invoice, and you can prioritize in and make it, on the upward on the payment cycle. With this, I'm going to jump into the line item level where I have done a purchase of 400 quantities. In this particular case, as we go in, so what we have done is we have placed a bulk order of this particular material, and now I want to add a cost center around it because I don't have a purchase order reference on it. So I can just put in a cost number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as we integrate with different finance systems or different ERPs, you can add different validations and different internal, different validations or different drop-down boxes. So all those things can be added around here. Now, in some cases, what we have is like, since it was a 400 quantity, I would like to, make it duplicated and make 2 quantities around it. So I'll just put 200 quantity and put the cost center, the cost around different cost center. So I'm just going to add a new line item, and a workflow will be triggered for the person responsible for the cost center. And then the next step can be taken of whether you want to process the payment and the related action. Now, since we are on workflow and integration, those are the primary capabilities in ServiceNow. And as you have inherited it, you can build the workflows based on the cost center, based on the different internal order. So all those things can be added around here. Going further on the integration capability, I would also like to touch upon that what happens if you try to integrate your report uh, with your financial system. For example, if this particular invoice has been properly approved and processed, you would like to prioritize the payment of it because there is a discount underlying it. So what you can do is you can see that if report is there that talks about the different vendors and what are the different amount dues in the next 8 or days or next 30 days. So you can manage your cash flow and your working capital. So you can use this report, download it, and send it back to your finance team for further processing or sending it to the different bank. And in terms of bank, we do have another report that can generate a new report on around the standard bank format file. So for those are the approved invoices that so that can generate a specific bank statement file where you can put it in the bank format of Morgan Chase, or you can put it in the standard format of Standard Chartered, and there you just have to download it, and a CSV file will be generated on this. With this, you can send it for further payment to different banks. So I just wanted to touch upon three use cases where the first use case was around the complete workflow for purchase order based invoice. The second was on the AI processing, identifying the garbage value and the actual invoice value. The third was on the integration part and on how non-PO invoices will be completely processed. So those were some of the salient points I want to talk about. Yeah. So we can probably start with the question and answers if you have got any.
Yeah, Rohit. So first question is the invoice matching. So basically, where it is trying to match the view. So is it only at the invoice header level, or is it matching at the line level too?
So the invoice matching will be done can be done at both at the header level and the item level. So what we have seen right now is at the header level. At a line item level, you can also put in the multiple purchase orders and multiple GR and all that. So that can be done at both sides.
Okay. Okay. The next question is, do we have a roadmap to leverage the invoice flow application for accounts paid?
Yes, we do have a roadmap where we are trying to integrate both the invoice part with the payments. So, building the complete application of accepting the invoices and then trying to build some spend analytics and making the invoice payments on that. So that can be integrated with your ERP or with different financial systems.
Okay. The next question is from Michael. So he's asking his question is, we are a ServiceNow partner, and while we do receive invoices, we also send invoices out. And is there a way if we can leverage Aavenir Invoiceflow to track and manage both inflow and outflow of the invoices?
Okay. Hope I understood correctly the question. So what you're saying is you can bring in the invoices and also manage the related payments around that. Yes, definitely. In terms of, we can just accept the vendor invoices. So if you're talking about the accounts receivable or generating the custom invoices, so that's not part of our scope on this one.
Okay, but I think we can consider this as a separate use case.
Yeah,
Wherein
absolutely.
we do cover the invoices which they are generating.
Yeah, sure. So I think we need to understand more on the use case part of what kind of invoices you're looking at. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. The next question is there any limitation on invoice format, or can we use any invoice of any format and the invoice flow application will process it?
So yes, in terms of invoice format, we can accept PDF, we can accept all the image format. It can be in JPG or PNG, all the standard format. In my past, I have seen invoices are sent via EDI or XML. So in this case, you just have to scan the invoice. You just have to scan the invoice and send it to the common email ID. So those are the two formats in terms of PDF and image that we're looking at.
Okay. Coming back to the invoice data extraction. So is it happening directly on ServiceNow or is it through any other VM system?
So the processing definitely happens both on ServiceNow and VM, but the AI part is on the VM. So the AI is a custom application that we have built that process all the invoices, and that lies outside ServiceNow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is Integration Hub used for the product or is it going to connect with ERP or FNS?
So yes, we use the integration hub, but definitely I'm getting more technical on this one. So we do use the APIs and the related spokes that are there on the integration hub. Question on the primary email. Email is used as an interface, or accepting the invoices. And once the invoices are accepted, it's sent it out to the ServiceNow and sent it to the AI to process. So,
Okay.
and as a final step, you can send the invoice to the ERP or a financial management system.
So a lot of questions coming in. So the next question is from Stephanie. She's asking if you can explain in more details about how are you taking invoices of different formats and applying OCR?
Okay. So, I think what we are doing is in terms of scanning the invoices, we are, so I might get more technical on this one. So it's just, we use a deep learning at the invoice line item level and use a conditional random algorithm at the header level. So that's done at the, applied on the OCR that we have managed, we have basically built on. And so you convert your PDF and image, put it in text, and then convert that, process it, and then send it out to the ServiceNow applications. So yeah, it's a mix of OCR applications and lot of magic that happens, that has been done by our AI team and the technical team.
So the next question from Jason is, would Aavenir Invoiceflow solution sit in our own ServiceNow instance, or is it a separate instance that we need to purchase?
Excellent question. Glad that you asked that. So the solution will be sitting on the ServiceNow instance itself of the organization. Aavenir is not, cannot connect with your ServiceNow instance. So everything is there in your ServiceNow instance only. So what you have seen now will be applied on your ServiceNow instance. Thanks for asking that.
And just to touch on that again, Jason, you actually, to get access, you'll go into the ServiceNow App Store via your own ServiceNow interface. So everything will be contained within the environment you've already got. Kind of goes back to the first poll question about App Store.
Okay, great. We've got a couple of more questions. Is there an out-of-the-box NetSuite integration with Invoice?
Okay, so we do use the integration hub based on the API. And yes, NetSuite, I think, is already available as I spoke on integration hub. So yeah, we can use, out of the box, we use the API and can integrate with different ERPs. So I need to, I can get back to you on this part. But as far as I'm sure, we can integrate with NetSuite.
Okay. So next question is, what kind of licensing is needed? How many users are needed for the application?
So I can take this one, Rohit. And this, I think, kind of will address Jason's question as well as an anonymous question. So the licensing model for Invoiceflow is actually not a charge per user model. So if you have already got, say, ITSM requesting licenses for folks in the organization, we can leverage that. But essentially, the approvers are a free license type. And if they've already got a license to ServiceNow for any other functionality, we can leverage that. Otherwise, an access license would be granted. It's a really solid part of us being built native on ServiceNow. Generally, you're using ServiceNow for ITSM, everybody has a license in case they need to submit a ticket to IT. That infrastructure is already set, and we can leverage those licenses to put people on approval chains as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Russell. The question which now I have is from Morgan. So do the scans or attachments ever leave the instance? For example, are they sent out to be OCR'd, or does it all happen on the Now platform?
So yes, when the supplier sends the particular invoice, it is happening at a different VM and at AWS specifically. And this is where AI can do, apply the different algorithms to the OCR and then send the processed invoice to the platform. Because currently there are some limitations. To be honest, on processing the number of invoices, the capabilities in terms of invoicing. So yeah, everything happens outside the ServiceNow instance. And once it is processed completely, the invoice reaches ServiceNow and then the subsequent processing happens.
Okay, great. The next question is, what is the licensing model to use your app from the App Store? So is it user-based or is it per month-based?
Yeah, it's not user based. It's volume based, and whomever that is, happy to. In fact, I'll share my email with you in the chat log right now. Feel free to reach out to me. I can give you some more insight into the licensing models and the different dials and levers that affect the commercialization of the application. So I just shared my email address with you.
Okay, great. Another question which we have is, what are the AP, so basically account payable KPIs, can be monitored using Aavenir Invoice?
Okay, that's a tricky one. So the KPIs can be average invoice processing cost, because you want to calculate how much money you spend on processing an invoice from receiving it to approving it. That's one cost. You would like to benchmark the average invoice processing time. So normally organizations also go in for number of invoices processed per day, probably per AP staff. Sometimes even organizations, would like to understand the invoice exception rate, because 70% of your invoices do go for exception because there is some variance from purchase order to invoice. So definitely there are some variants around that. Yeah, I think that pretty much, can cover the different KPIs.
Yeah. I think that pretty much covers up the Q&A session. So Russell, over to you. I think if you can just go back to the previous slide and if you can share about the template center.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Maddie. I do definitely invite everybody to come by our website. We've got some great material here to, first of all, help you think about how to begin assessing an accounts payable automation solution provider. Additionally, we've got a bunch of RFP templates available for free download to help you kind of get started with different considerations for different parts of technology or anything else really that you might be looking for in the organization. So certainly do swing by the website, go to our template central if you want some more just guidance on some things to be considering or thinking about as it relates to finding the right account payable automation solution for your organization. And with that, I think we have concluded the material for today. So I will we'll be distributing the recording to everybody who had registered. So thank you everybody who has stuck it out. Really appreciate all of the thoughtful questions and everybody taking some time out of your day to learn a bit about us. We will be in touch with you, and yeah, look forward to seeing you on the next webinar next month. Like I said earlier, please go follow us on LinkedIn to get more information about some of the upcoming presentations that we'll be delivering.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Russell, and thank you, Rohit, for giving a wonderful presentation. Thank you. Bye for now.